Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We are here at Rebel One Live with Adrianna Samaniego, who is an investor at Female Founders Fund. So thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here, Sergio.
Yeah, Adriana and I go way back, so excited to have you with us tonight for you to share your story. I'll share a little bit with the audience about Adriana. She's a trailblazer. Graduated from the University of Georgia, and then also got her MBA at Columbia Business School. She's worked at companies such as Google. She's worked at JetBlue Ventures. Has also worked at New Media Ventures, and now before joining Female Founders Fund, has been an entrepreneur, which she'll share a little bit more about her entrepreneurship stories within Google. And happy that we had you on today. So yeah, so I'll turn it over to you, and if you could share with the audience a little bit more about what is Females Founders Fund.
Yeah, happy. So, really glad to be here. Thank you again. So, Female Founders Fund, we are an early stage fund based out of New York City. We were established in 2014 by a former founder herself named Anu Dugal, who's our founding partner, and Solo GP. And really, we were founded with one simple belief that women are going to build the companies of tomorrow and that we're going to back them. And so we are a generalist fund, and I would describe us as the thematic investors. So there are a couple of themes that we're really excited about each year that we're either researching or looking into and trying to invest across those themes. So we play in the pre-seed and seed stage. I would say mostly seed stage. So on average, right now, what we're investing is we're playing in $2 to $3 million rounds, seed rounds, with an average check of 750K to $1 million.
Awesome. And for those, to give the lay of the land for those that don't know, can you share a little bit more of the stats? How much venture capital goes to female founders, and how many
Yeah,
female
yeah,
founders there are proportionally, if you can
yeah.
bless
So
us with that.
of course. So just we recently launched a podcast called The 2%, and the thought there is less than 2% of venture capital dollars have gone to female founders, and it really hasn't changed over a decade. It's changed very nominally, and so there continues to be a gap. And then even more specifically, when you look at the demographics, so Black female founders, Latinx female founders, it becomes really abysmal. So not even 0.006% goes to Black female founders, 0.032% or 0.32%, excuse me, goes to Latinx founders. And so our mission was really, our founding partner was a founder herself, and she saw, when she was looking across her cap table, that it was men, and she didn't understand that and had a difficulty raising money in the first place. And so she had success, was able to exit her company, and decided that she wanted to tackle this problem. And ultimately, since 2014, we've now have just under 50 portfolio companies.
That's it. That's amazing, and much needed in the space. Especially, 2% is not a lot of capital
Yeah.
to go to all the female founders. So it's an issue, and glad you're focused on it. One of the challenges in talking to LPs we get as well at Rebel One, is they talk about, as you're focused on female founders, how do you develop that industry expertise? You mentioned the thematic, so that you
Mhm.
could be an expert in the area and select great deals. How do you all focus, develop that expertise, even though you're focused on female founders broadly?
Yeah. So I would say, one thing that always, when I talk to other investors who are also generalists, we kind of complain that you have to know a lot, but a little about a lot of things. And it's a challenge. Sometimes I look at other friends who are in the industry, and they're only following like the future of work, or only investing in the future of work. And I'm like, you probably know so much. And so it's a constant daily and weekly challenge that we work through as generalist. So I may one, hour be talking to a future of work company, the next hour talking to a healthcare company, the next hour talking to an ed tech company. And so having to be informed about the industry and what's going on and what comps are looking like, what the trends are looking like. And so I think generally venture capital and just investors are curious. And so you're ingesting a lot of information across the board. And then what we do is we do deep dives. And so whether it's an area, so recently one of the areas that I was looking into was menopause. And so I did a large kind of couple months research project on it just to get smart and track and understand what was happening in the space. And then I'll do that again now that I've finished and kind of published my thoughts and thesis on what's going on within menopause specifically. I'll probably now look at death tech.
Got it. So you're looking at tangential spaces around that, and having your expertise, and do you have a particular expertise, and then different team members hold different expertise? Is that how you all manage that?
I would say we're a pretty flat team, very lean. There's 3 on our investment team, a total of 5. And generally we're all generalists, but then of course we all bring different experiences. And so one of the things that I bring to the team and that I focus on is I have a background in B2B. A lot of my experiences have been in the B2B space. And so I definitely have kind of doubled down on some of those areas of opportunity, the relationships that I have and with other investors, like who only invest in B2B, and focusing on that because uh, other team members like Anu or Emily or something of that nature, they may know brand really well. They know like D2C products. They know healthcare really well. And so I get to, when we do have a B2B, company, or the companies that I'm bringing, a majority of them, a lot of them will be, if I'm sourcing, will be within like the enterprise world. And then we do little sprints where if there's an exciting, you know, founder or opportunity, we'll do these little sprints. It's like perhaps we're not smart on that area, and so in order for us to get smart, we do like a 2-day, 1-day, like really big sprint to understand, okay, what's going on, and then also looking to other people who are experts in this industry. So if there's SaaS investors, going to them and being like, this is a founder that I really like, an opportunity that's exciting. What do you know about this space? Like, what are you seeing? Do you think it's interesting to help us move a little faster?
Awesome. So I bet that it's great. You started mentioning about your background, so I wanted to actually for you to share a little bit more of your story. How did you go from University of Georgia now to Female Founders Fund? You could share your journey. Oh, I think you're muted. What happened? I'll fix it. Um, and for those that in looking at your background also, go ahead. Yep, you're good. You can unmute it. I
Sorry,
don't
there's
think
a bit of background noise. I had muted. I didn't realize it was going to.
no problem. I'll fix that. So, um, but for those, yeah, if you can share a little bit more. I know you worked at Goldman, and then you started. Can you share more of like how did you bridge into venture capital? Did you always know you wanted to go in it, or when did you discover that?
No, absolutely. Definitely didn't know I wanted to go into it. Not 10 years ago, of course. So my story is I'm born and raised in a small border town, very proud Mexican American. Relocated with my family to Atlanta, Georgia, attended the University of Georgia, majored in finance. Right out of undergrad, joined Google, supporting Fortune 500 firms on their B2B marketing strategies. So directly working with CMOs and directors of a marketing on their growth and marketing strategies. And then during that period, a couple years in, I decided that I was really excited about growth opportunities in supporting diverse owned businesses and what the company was doing in terms of building for diverse SMBs. And so that led me to become this entrepreneur and pitch programs and products that were really focused on communities of color and women-owned businesses and LGBT-owned businesses. And so I led and launched Google Supplier Diversity Program, which was procuring with more diverse-owned businesses. And that, in a matter of 2 years from launching that, we spent almost $2 billion with minority and women-owned businesses. And then that gave me the idea of like, okay, this was fun. I really enjoyed this. This is what I'm passionate about. Led me to join Alphabet's incubator called Area 120, where it's only for Google employees or Alphabet employees, and you pitch an idea. It operates very much like a VC, and that was to build a B2B marketplace. And so that experience gave me more insight into the industry. Of course, I was like working and living in Silicon Valley, but I didn't quite, have the closest pulse on VC at the time. I was just in the larger tech ecosystem, and working in an incubator, building a business. That is what gave me insight into what a incubator, accelerators, and how this partner role and the decisions and how they're selecting opportunities. And so I decided, after that experience, which I learned, really quickly, I learned some of the very simple, very common, startup mistakes and lessons in terms of team and product and things of that nature. And so that led me, to then follow what I ultimately wanted to do for a long time, which was get my MBA and first gen in my family. And when I was reflecting on like, okay, I'm going to go get my MBA, but I want to be sure that I'm going to have a plan. And why is it that I want to get my MBA? What is the next milestone for me? And I just loved VC. I had made my first angel investment with a friend and was curious about that. And so went into my MBA really laser focused on breaking into venture. And you and I had met, we did an angel investment together, and I loved that, experience, and just became, daily trying to get better and build my investing muscle and then get opportunities to break into the space.
Yeah, I was gonna say in our partners meetings, you are always brought deals. That's the key. It's all about reps, getting your reps in. So
Mm-hmm.
that's great. And then as you, and it's great to hear more, like as you talked about your story, right? Leveraging your focus on diversity at Google, but not only that, you focused on building supplier partnerships and that business development, right? And then bringing that into your venture capital focus. How did you and so while you were in your MBA, can you talk a little bit about why you chose to do JetBlue Ventures and New Media Ventures? Were you can you talk a little bit more about getting into VC and why you decided to do what you did?
Yeah. So really, I was again looking for the best way that I learned, which was by doing. And so one part was doing actively investing and learning, to be an angel investor and making those personal bets, because that builds a track record. And ultimately, you can do that in a variety of different ways. You can build a thesis, et cetera. You can just have a lot of connections. But one of those ways that I was doing it through was angel investing. And then the other part of it was, getting hands-on experience. And I was also trying to answer a few questions, which I think it's important for those who are interested in breaking into the industry. It's like, why do you want to break into the industry? What excites you about VC, and what kind of VC do you want to be, and what type of flavor are you looking for? Size of fund, in terms of generalist, and or being, tied to a specific industry. And so I was trying to answer those questions. And with JetBlue, I was really excited about the opportunity to, one, test out corporate VC, test out a larger stage. So they are Series A investors, A, B, and beyond. And so that was what I was trying to figure out: is, do I like large? And do I like A or seed? Because prior to JetBlue Ventures, I had interned at Harlem Capital, and they are seed investors, and so I had that piece of information. And then right after JetBlue Ventures, I decided to not take A-term classes. I just kind of like put accelerated like my MBA into one semester for at least that semester, and took another full term internship with New Media Ventures. And the question that I was trying to answer there, that I was really interested about, is, do I want to do impact investing, because they're an impact fund? And so it was a couple of questions that I was really trying to figure out, because ultimately, again, I was trying to land, but I wanted to make the decision with, all the information and knowing that I held the cards, because sometimes it feels like you don't, but I was trying to really control my thought about this, and was like, no, I have the choice. I have really great experience, and for that reason, this is how I'm going to answer these questions and what I'm looking for.
And ultimately, why did you choose, the more of a typical investing path versus an impact investing path?
Uh, a couple of reasons. It was really tough, but I had the option, go impactful, like impact fund. So New Media Ventures invests in both like political tech and community and all sorts of other great things. They're still a VC, but they're an impact fund. And then, Female Founders Fund, we have a angle, which is we invest in an underrepresented group. And so there's a layer of impact in there, but we're not an impact fund. Ultimately, we're driven by returns. And so for me, when I was looking at that, what it came down to is the question that was really clear in my mind is that I needed a personal kind of connection, and impact had to be in some form there. So I wasn't looking for to go back into a large fund that didn't have, that was a generalist or went after, whatever trend there is, that did not have, if they weren't investing in some sort of, underrepresented founder, or there wasn't impact, that was like not for me. I knew that. And so with Female Founders Fund, I personally, it was two things. I was optimizing for, there was mission there, and then team. And so ultimately I decided, and geography and things of that nature, but ultimately I decided like there was a mission and I can get behind. And then ultimately too, it was a generalist, which got me excited because I don't love one industry so much that I want to consume it every single day. And there are a lot of people
Not yet.
who like feel, they're like, I love, healthcare so much, that's all I want to see. And I'm not, that's not my personality. And so I like to know, again, a little about a lot of things, and that got me excited in terms of joining Female Founders Fund. The stage was perfect, really got along with the team. And I knew also the other thing for people to consider when you're asking yourself, like, okay, what type of fund that I'm looking for, etc. The other thing that I was considering is size of team, hierarchy, and things of that nature. How much responsibility would I have, and like the growth. And I was looking, for a large kind of like runway so I can do a lot of things, touch a lot of different pieces. And that's what I currently have.
That's great. And in looking at you alluded to it. I love it when you talked about there's a layer of impact, right? And
Mhm.
and you and I might say impact, and then as we know, when you say impact fund, at least to the limited partner community, it means philanthropic, right? There's the where you can have a double bottom line, right? And that's the the
Mhm.
the ethos of Female Founders Fund. Uh, for you, where we talked a lot about, there's not a lot of representation, right? There's not a lot of capital going to female founders, and that's what you all focus on. What are things that that need to be done to move the needle faster, right? Not just a little bit, but to make, you're talking about 10x the sort of change in the period of time. What are things that can be done?
There's a few things. So I think the first thing, and people have been able to prove this, which is, the myths that exist in terms of, okay, there are not enough female founders, or female founders aren't building, billion-dollar businesses. All of those things have been completely just debunked. There are a lot of female founders. There are female founders who are IPOing and have billion-dollar businesses, and a lot more to come. And so starting there. And then the other thing is, it has been shown when you have investors who are female, or who are Black, Latinx, whatever it may be, that it's likely that they are going to get deal flow that is different than a white male. And you see firms where their deal flow changes once their investors change. So if you have a homogenous group of investors, you're likely all going to be seeing really similar deals. And so I think it starts with, ensuring that you have representation and a diverse deal or access to a diverse deal flow, and that you're like not just sitting in your office and only looking at and thinking that the flavor of the next $1 billion businesses are the white men that look like Mark Zuckerberg. Like that is not the world that we live in today. And so kind of breaking that, and then ultimately seeing, there was this DocSend report that they did on female founders, which I thought was really interesting and also disappointing at the same time, which was the fact that, investors spent 40% more of their time on the traction slide for female founders than they did for male founders. And it was like, they're raising the exact same money, the exact same stage, et cetera. And it was for all female teams and all male teams. And then they spent less time on the ask for female founders than they did for male founders. And then ultimately they looked at like how many meetings a female founder had to take in order to raise their round compared to male founders. And so there's a really big access issue, but there's also this like confirmation bias that is happening, and just general like unconscious bias and blatant bias that is happening when it comes to female founders. It's often not equal. Like female founders are the bar, and what is requested for them of them is much higher. And then you put a Black woman, a Latina woman, and that bar is even higher. And so they're having to jump a lot of hoops in order to get there. And if you sit down with female founders who have successfully raised and you ask them like, was it easy? Most of them are going to say absolutely not.
And for the ones we've had on, we've had several CEOs as well speak, and many of them female, and they also talk about how they've achieved raising millions of dollars, but it wasn't all overnight. It was like small commits over time, long periods, but they eventually got there. So that grittiness to just keep going.
Most of the time they're talking to people who are different than them. I've now gotten used to it, but every time our team joins a pitch call, they get so happy and surprised. They're like, it's so nice to see a female investor.
That's nice. I mean, it's a great for on your team. Is it an all-female team?
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. And then how also for you all, as you're pulling your portfolio together, how do you think about investing in? You mentioned before products catered toward females. Like, does the product doesn't also have to be catered toward females, does it? Or is it okay? But how do you think about that? Are you more inclined for that, or it's just as long as it's a female founder, or does it have to be an all female founder team?
Okay. As long as there is one female co-founding partner. And so we have a couple people in our portfolio who are a male and female co-founding team. We have a triple co-founders, and it's a mix, and then we have solo founders as well. And then of course a lot of founders are building a product or solution that they have a founder market fit, meaning they felt that problem, experienced it in some way, and so they're putting a solution, which is why we have a lot of companies in our portfolio that are their target consumer is, or their target audience is women. That being said, it's not exclusive. We have B2B companies and everything else.
Great.
But I think it's easier for us to understand when we do have those companies. We have Maven Clinic, which is a clinic for the first telehealth platform for women.
Mhm.
And, when Kate was launching and building her product, she didn't have to explain the importance of this. When we recently invested in a company called Ula, which is really modernizing the experience for women, the delivery process for women, and creating modern birthing centers, they didn't have to explain, the importance of this and what was happening. And so I think that is often appreciated.
That's great. That just like having experience building business relationships, having experience as a woman, relating to the product makes a lot of sense, right? To evaluate those products for you know, for people, people that are trying to break into venture capital as you're making your way in the space. What advice do you have for them?
Well, all the other things that I said. And no, I think that if you, one, don't be drawn away because there are limited opportunities. If this is something that you really want, just go after it. Continue to make the connections. It still is highly, driven by um, just connections, either first, second degree. And so ensure that you're doing that. But also I feel like I'm a little bit of a non-traditional person. Like I applied to Female Founders Fund through LinkedIn and was still able to secure that, and probably all of like my opportunities. And so I think that's a piece. And I would say, ask yourself those really important questions, which is like why you want to do this, and the type of fund size, sector, et cetera, that you're looking for. And what is it that you're going to bring to that fund? What's different that you're going to bring to that fund? And when you're trying to drive these connections, really do it in a way that is helpful. So whether it's like sending, a deal that was, so one of the ways that I did it was like sending a deal that I knew fit their deal taste, or sharing my thesis that I was like working on. And so showing that you are really consuming and excited about this stuff, because some people, I think you hear like VC and venture and it's like buzzy, but it can be one, it could be a very independent job too. And so if you're somebody who is like constantly, you want to work in a team, and that's like what drives you there, we are collaborative, at least at Female Founders Fund, and thankfully we're a small team, so we get to collaborate. But then there's a lot of like due diligence or just research that you're doing that is solo. And so kind of understanding deeply what that experience is and what you bring, and then just you hustle. Like I at least that's what worked for me, which is like, okay, I may not have previous venture experience, but I can out hustle anyone.
Love it. So what's next? What's next for Adriana? Where are you looking at your horizons?
Well, I just started, so I'm really excited. I think we are doing a lot of really interesting things. So, one, a lot of deals are coming through. It's interesting. The time that I joined, I find to be crazy. It's like it was a complete blessing. I graduated my MBA in May and had the opportunity to join Female Founders Fund before that, and through like 4 to 3 days a week until I graduated to join full time. But I joined right at the pandemic, and so the first thing that we were experiencing was really like, okay, how much exposure did our portfolio have? What can we do? And so I learned a lot through that. And then obviously, when I say what do you bring to the table, one of the things that I was really excited about was how we can, be one, invest in female founders. But then when I said those like stats earlier, in terms of like when you look at the intersectionality, how can we get even better about investing and intersectionality and even earlier? And so now we have a newer scout program that is for Black and Latinx founders who are earlier stages, where we normally wouldn't write because we're playing in the $2 to $3 million round. And now we're getting to play at like the pre-seed, really pre-seed, like 500K or under $1 million raise, with a smaller check, but still open up, our resources and get in earlier and support these founders, which that to me is really exciting. And now that I have several deals under my belt, it's like the fun part also begins, which is really getting to sit down every single month or however often you meet with your founders and help them with their business, like getting to do like UX interviews or whatever you're doing. Like that's one of the things that I did this week. That stuff is exciting to me because you get to really understand their business and help them think through the strategies, because we are early investors, and so a lot of the companies, some of the companies are like beta or pre-launch, and anyone who has like an interest for entrepreneurship, getting to do that with people who are really passionate about their business is so much fun. So excited about that. And then we're closing, soon to close our fund 3, so that's been interesting to see as well. And I hope that in the next year is an even larger year for female founders and underrepresented founders in general. I think this is like we have a lot of tailwinds, and VCs that care about this and that are looking at this. And then just generally like business, like NASDAQ passed that you have to have, at least one woman or underrepresented person on your board. That never existed. And so this
Yep.
is going to open up a lot of different opportunities, and conversations and kind of real facts.
I love it. So lots of progress here. Thank you, Adrianna, for joining us. So for
Yeah.
everyone just tuning in, Adrianna Samaniego, an investor at Female Founders Fund. Thanks for sharing your story tonight. And for those watching, tune in. Once a week, we interview amazing VCs and CEOs like Adrianna. So thanks again.
No problem. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, wherever you find me. Would love to connect.
Also, and also Females Founders Fund. The link will be in the live stream notes.